You know what's kind of funny? When most people think about dangerous ocean predators, their mind immediately jumps to sharks. And I mean, fair enough, sharks are pretty intimidating with their rows of teeth and that whole apex predator vibe they've got going on. Maybe you've even had a few nightmares after watching Jaws. Or perhaps you're one of those people who refuses to go past waist-deep water at the beach. No judgment here. But here's the thing that might make you feel a bit better, or honestly, way worse depending on how you look at it. Sharks? They're basically the ocean's golden retrievers compared to what used to swim around back in the day. And I'm not talking about a few million years ago. I'm talking about the age of dinosaurs when the seas were ruled by creatures so terrifyingly massive and lethal that modern great whites would have been nothing more than a light snack. And the best part, or worst part, these things weren't even dinosaurs. Plot twist, I know. So today, we're diving deep, pun absolutely intended, into the forgotten world of marine reptiles that dominated the oceans during the Mesozoic era. Creatures that have been overshadowed by their land-dwelling cousins like T-Rex and Triceratops, but which were arguably even more terrifying. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to be very grateful that these things are extinct. Very grateful. Now, before we get into the absolute units that lurked in prehistoric seas, let's clear something up real quick. When we talk about sea dinosaurs, we're actually being a bit inaccurate. Technically speaking, dinosaurs were land animals. The massive reptiles that ruled the oceans were a different branch of the reptile family tree entirely. But you know what? Most people call them sea dinosaurs anyway, and honestly, it sounds way cooler than saying marine reptiles. So we're just going to roll with it. And if any paleontologists are watching this, I apologize, but also, you know what I mean? Alright, so let's start with perhaps the most famous of these oceanic terrors, the mosasaurus. And yes, this is the same creature that stole the show in Jurassic World by casually eating a great white shark like it was a fish stick. And while Hollywood definitely took some creative liberties with the size, they weren't exactly wrong about how absolutely monstrous these things were. Mosasaurs first appeared roughly 100 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period, which if you're keeping track was right around the time when dinosaurs on land were reaching their peak weirdness. And these guys? They went absolutely wild in the evolutionary department. Imagine yourself as a fisherman, but 80 million years ago. Not the most practical thought experiment, but bear with me. You're out on your boat, or whatever counts as a boat back then. Probably just a really confident log. And suddenly you see something breaking the surface. At first glance, it looks kind of like a crocodile. Long snout, scaly skin, powerful tail. But then it keeps rising, and rising, and rising, until you realize this thing is as long as a school bus, some species even longer. And unlike a crocodile, which is already terrifying enough, this creature is built for speed. We're talking about an animal that could swim up to 30 miles per hour. That's faster than you can run, in the water, where you can't run. So yeah, good luck with that. And the teeth. Mosasaurs didn't just have one row of teeth. They had teeth on their lower jaws, their upper jaws, and get this, on the roof of their mouths. It's like evolution looked at sharks and said, "That's cute, but what if we added more?" These teeth were curved backward, which meant that once a mosasaurus bit down on something, that something wasn't going anywhere. Not alive, anyway. And stomach content analysis has shown that these apex predators ate basically everything. Fish? Obviously. Turtles? Yep, shell and all. Other mosasaurs? Absolutely. Because why not add cannibalism to the resume? They even ate pterosaurs, the flying reptiles, which means these things were jumping out of the water like modern orcas. Terrifying. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Mosasaurs weren't just mindless eating machines. Recent fossil evidence suggests they might have been somewhat intelligent, at least by reptile standards. Some species showed signs of binocular vision, which would have given them depth perception. In other words, they could accurately judge distances, making them even more efficient hunters. And there's evidence that they might have hunted in packs in certain areas. So picture this, a group of 40-foot-long sea monsters working together with excellent vision and ridiculous speed. Yeah, the Cretaceous oceans were not the place to be. Now, as dominant as mosasaurs were, they weren't the first marine reptiles to rule the seas. That honor goes to a group that was around way earlier and honestly might have been even more alien-looking. And that would be the ichthyosaurs. The name literally means fish lizard, which is pretty on the nose but also entirely accurate. These things looked like if someone took a dolphin, mixed it with a lizard, and then supersized the eyes to comical proportions. We're talking eyes the size of dinner plates on some species, and there was a very good reason for that. Many ichthyosaurs were deep divers, descending into the dark abyss where sunlight doesn't reach. Those massive eyes helped them spot prey in near total darkness. Nature's built-in night vision goggles. Ichthyosaurs first appeared about 250 million years ago, right after the Permian extinction event, which for the record was the worst mass extinction in Earth's history. Like, way worse than the one that killed the dinosaurs. Over 90% of all species were wiped out, but apparently some reptiles looked at the devastated, empty oceans and thought, you know what? Opportunity? And they went all in on becoming marine animals. And it worked. For a really long time. We're talking about a group that dominated the seas for nearly 160 million years. That's longer than dinosaurs ruled the land. Let that sink in. And the diversity among ichthyosaurs was wild. Some species were only about 3 feet long, basically the size of a modern seal. But others were massive. The largest known ichthyosaur, Dinosaurus sicanensis, measured up to 85 feet long. That's longer than most mosasaurs. That's longer than most whales today. And this thing was swimming around 210 million years ago, hunting in packs, using echolocation. Yes, echolocation. Just like modern dolphins and whales, convergent evolution is absolutely wild when you think about it. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about ichthyosaurs is how we know so much about them. And this is where things get a bit dark, but also scientifically incredible. You see, we found fossilized ichthyosaurs that died while giving birth. That's right, these animals didn't lay eggs like most reptiles. They gave live birth. And we know this because there are fossils showing baby ichthyosaurs literally emerging from their mothers, preserved for millions of years. It's simultaneously tragic and amazing. We've even found fossils with preserved soft tissue, including skin and blubber, which confirms that these reptiles had evolved to be fully aquatic. They couldn't come onto land at all. The ocean was their entire world. Now, if mosasaurs were the apex predators of the late Cretaceous and ichthyosaurs, dominated the Triassic and Jurassic, there's one more group we need to talk about. And these guys are arguably the most bizarre of the bunch. Enter the plesiosaurs. These are the creatures that inspired the Loch Ness Monster legend. And honestly, if Nessie were real, she'd probably be something like an elasmosaurus. Picture a creature with a body like a sea turtle, 4 flippers instead of legs. And then, just for fun, a neck that's absurdly long, like longer than its entire body. We're talking about necks with over 70 vertebrae. For comparison, giraffes, the animal famous for having a long neck, only have 7. These things had over 70. And for the longest time, scientists weren't even sure how plesiosaurs used these necks. Some thought they moved them like snakes, whipping them around to catch fish. But more recent research suggests the neck was actually pretty stiff and was used more like a fishing rod. The plesiosaur would keep its body still and use its long neck to slowly position its head near schools of fish before suddenly striking, ambush predator style. And it worked incredibly well, considering plesiosaurs were around for about 135 million years. But not all plesiosaurs had long necks. Some went in the complete opposite direction and evolved short necks with absolutely massive heads. And they were the true monsters of the plesiosaur family. The most famous of these is probably Dinosaurs, which you might remember from that old viral video. Though I will say, that video greatly exaggerated its size. It wasn't 150 feet long, more like 20 to 25 feet. Still big, but not quite the sea dragon it was made out to be. However, there was one pliosaur that actually does live up to the hype, and that's Pliosaurus funke. And yes, that's its real name. Discovered off the coast of Norway, this absolute unit had a skull that was nearly 10 feet long. Just the skull. The entire animal was estimated to be around 40 to 50 feet in length with a bite force that rivaled and possibly exceeded that of Tyrannosaurus rex. We're talking about a bite force of 33,000 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, a great white shark's bite is around 4,000 psi. Pliosaurus funke could have bitten a great white in half, literally. And the truly wild part is that all of these creatures, mosasaurs, ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, they all lived in the same oceans at various points. Different time periods, sure, but the same waters we swim in today, the same beaches we visit on vacation. Except back then, going for a swim would have been a death sentence. There was no safe place in the ocean. Shallow waters, mosasaurs. Deep waters, giant ichthyosaurs. Mid-depths, plesiosaurs waiting to ambush you. The Mesozoic seas were basically a nightmare difficulty ocean survival game. So what happened to all these terrifying sea monsters? Well, same thing that happened to the dinosaurs. 66 million years ago, A 6-mile wide asteroid decided to ruin everyone's day by slamming into what is now Mexico. The impact triggered massive tsunamis, wildfires, volcanic eruptions, and eventually a global winter that lasted for years. And while some animals survived, the large marine reptiles didn't make it. The food chains collapsed, the oceans acidified, and one by one, these ancient lineages went extinct. But here's something to think about. After these marine reptiles vanished, it took millions of years for the oceans to be repopulated by large predators. And the animals that eventually filled those niches? Sharks, whales, and other marine mammals. In other words, the ocean predators we have today are basically the understudies that got promoted after the original cast was wiped out. And while a great white shark is absolutely a formidable predator, it's got nothing on a 60-foot mosasaurus or a pliosaur with a skull the size of a car. So the next time you're at the beach and you feel a little nervous about sharks, just remember, it could be worse, way worse. You could be swimming in the Cretaceous. And honestly, I think I'll stick with the modern ocean. Thanks for watching, and until next time on Primeval Zoo.